I made a mistake. I'll fix it. I'm trying to fix it. Okay, this better fucking work. I'm hesitant to even click it. Oh, did it work? Alright, fuck the mute thing. It worked. Alright. I don't know what that was all about. Anyway, what's up, Internet? So, how's it going? It's Thursday. You're watching ATP Live, and my name is Eris. And you may notice that there's a couple of numbskulls missing below me right now. That's probably because this weekend is Strong Style. And, everyone's getting their travel arrangements settled. And, I'm really excited. But the show must go on. So I decided, whatever, I'll just shoot the breeze. I have a couple of topics I wanted to talk to you guys about that I found to be pretty interesting. And later, depending on how everything goes, I might just get into my opinion on the tier list in Tekken Tag 2. So, yeah, we got a couple things I want to talk about. First things first, of course, I want to talk about Strong Style because, this is really a weird-ass event, And at this point, I don't really know how to even talk about it anymore because when I see people, like, at the arcade or whatever, and they're like, oh, shit, I heard about Strong Style, I don't know what to tell them. I can't tell them to watch it. So I'm like, hey, you should go. you guy, you don't even play Tekken and you are kind of interested. You should go. So it's definitely a unique tournament because of the fact that there is no stream. They're doing post-production. I know very little about that. I just know that they're really putting in a lot of work into the idea. And I'm just basically going to this tournament without knowing much. All I know is that these guys are very passionate. The cause is very good. Of course, this whole tournament and the whole movement of Strong Style is in memory of Patrick Collins. So, this is like, I think it's like maybe a reunion or something like that, something sentimental, I think. Definitely more so than other tournaments. So it's going to be something very unique. And I always want to mention it on the show. So that's one thing I wanted to mention, and the lack of my two co-hosts here is a result of that. So, I'm really excited. It's gonna be fantastic. I'm leaving tomorrow. Like, I'm gonna get there very late on Friday, so I'm gonna get there just in time for the action. But overall, I wish I could tell you guys something else other than it's gonna be tight. If you're gonna be there, it's gonna be tight. Harada, Michael Murray is gonna be there. It's going to be super sick. On the topic of Harada at Strong Style, in the past on this show, we've talked about the potential of something, concerning Tekken 7 being there. And they totally debunked that shit during the SBO Mad Cat stream. During their interview, they mentioned Strong Style, which was awesome. I'm sure, Bronson and Jimmy J. Tran were just loving that shit, and everyone else who's up there, everyone in NorCal. So they mentioned that shit on the stream. They were like, yeah, Strong Style, we're going to be there. We want to support the scene. I had a huge smile on my face. Really cool of them to bring it up and say they're going to be there and everything. But they did mention that there is no... Sorry, did I say SBO? I meant, what was it? It's not Togeki. Tokyo Game Show. Tokyo Game Show. So during the Tokyo Game Show Mad Cat stream, they said there is no way. They just said it flat out. It's not going to be there. They don't have anything that they're going to show there. So I don't know if that's definitely going to be true. It would be nice if they had something to show, but the problem is if they have something to show there, no one's going to see it. So it's kind of a pickle in regards to whether they should show something or not. But it is still possible that the people that go there might see or at least hear something about the game, especially considering, very soon we're going to start seeing gameplay footage of it. And, it's just, this is a very exciting time. for me especially. The information is going to come very soon, and I can't wait. I'm sure you guys all know there's going to be a location test in I forget where the hell it's going to be. Multiple location tests, October, whatever. I don't remember when it's going to be. You guys already know, but we're going to get to watch the game really soon, and it's just, we were talking about it at the arcade yesterday, me, Ricky, MYK, and everyone is just like, it doesn't even matter whether you like Tekken Tag 2 or don't like Tekken Tag 2. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. Everyone is very, very excited about Tekken 7. And I think that's probably because of the unknown. Because at this point, it just feels like something is coming, and we may hate it, we may love it, but either way, it's going to be something very new. And I think everyone's excited about that, because at this juncture, we've lived with this Tekken 6 system for, I feel like 6 years or maybe more than that. It feels like it's been a long time. I think Tekken 6 Arcade came out in '08, so it's been like 6 years that we've been dealing with Bound and Wall the way it exists, and then now that we have the tag system, it's time for a change, I think. And I'm really, really excited about that. Not only because it's the new Tekken, but I really want something new to play too. I feel like I haven't seriously been competing in anything lately, and it really, when I don't compete, when I don't put my heart into a game, I feel like there's like a void there. And there aren't many things that you can replace that sensation of a tournament match with. And I was discussing this yesterday at the arcade, but one of the biggest unique parts of being a tournament player is the sensation you get when you're playing in tournament, and especially when you're a newer player, the fight or flight that kicks in, the nerves really are unobtainable, as far as I know, in any other way, because it feels like the way it feels when you're in the middle of a 7-Eleven right when it's getting robbed. I don't know how many of you have been in a 7-Eleven while it's being robbed, but I have. And the sensation you get when some shit like that is going down, where the guy's got a gun and, he wants the money and all I want is a fucking Gatorade, those situations are very tense. And you're like, okay, this motherfucker's got a gun. Remember what they do in the movies. You get down, and then you kind of move over. What I did was I threw my money on the counter. It was way more than what the Gatorade cost, and I ran out the front door. But, those situations, it's like you put yourself in that intense situation without putting yourself in any danger. So that kind of thing, and being able to act in the clutch when you're in that kind of mental state of mind, is really hard to obtain, as far as I know. And competing in a serious tournament where you really, really want to win, it's a way to do that. And when I don't have a game like that, when I don't have a game that I'm playing, that I'm really into, it kind of is. It feels like I feel empty. Like I feel like I want something to do. I like playing games. It's cool. I've been playing Split Second, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, whatever. But none of those games, though they're all great games, none of them really give you that sensation of clutch where, it's like someone's fucking robbing the 7-Eleven, So, point being, I'm very, very excited. I can't wait, both for MK10, but of course, Tekken 7 is like right around the corner. So, very, very excited about that. And I'm sure all of you are too. So, you guys should definitely keep your eyes out. The footage is coming. And lots of content is coming too. So, from Rip and everyone else that does stuff like that, definitely keep your eyes out for that. Let's see. On the topic of, I got to tell you guys, since we're mano a mano here, I got to tell you guys, running a weekly podcast is really something else. I mean, I'm sure you can guess it's not easy, right? But I mean, just ask those clowns over at Tekken Smash how easy it is. How many episodes did that shit have? Fucking like 4 or something, and they were like, "Fuck it, pull the plug." It can be very taxing, I think. And I have to say that my primary motivation for doing this podcast every week is those of you who subscribe, those of you who tell me like, oh, I really love this shit. Those of you, when I don't do one for whatever reason, you guys bitch at me and you say, oh, where's the fucking podcast? What the hell? That's really the motivation for me to do it, because, it can be fun, but it's one of those things like it's it's not the funnest shit in the world. It's definitely like work. It's not work. Let's face it. My hands are not, they're soft, but it's not manual labor, but it's definitely not the funnest shit in the world. It can be kind of like a chore at times. And, it's really one of those things where, I'm glad I've kept at it at this point, and I've kept doing it for like 60. This is, I think, the 62nd episode of this podcast. So, I don't know. I think it's something that I'll continue doing. I think I get frustrated at times with the lack of news. And I think the lack of news that comes out has to do with the lack of popularity right now in Tekken. So that kind of stuff is going to be peaks and valleys. There is going to be times where there is too much shit to talk about, So it's kind of the way it goes for a weekly show. And, I mean, whatever. Who gives a shit? Point is that I appreciate those of you who appreciate the show. And for that reason, I continue doing it. I wrote down some stuff on this little note card. It's actually a business card. I don't even know what it. Maybe I should keep that. Anyway, so yeah, the next thing I wanted to discuss, which I found to be very interesting, internet, is so a few of you. At first, one person sent me this, but a few of you have sent me this article, or it's like a translation to an interview that several Japanese Street Fighter 4 players had, like this discussion that they had with each other, in which they talk about their experience at EVO. Now, this is the last EVO, the one that just transpired, EVO 2014. So, in this article, it's right over here. I mean, it's very peculiar because it seems like it's just a conversation between several different people. Kazunoko, Mago, Bon-chan. I think Tokido is also in this list of players. And they're talking to each other about their experience and everything. And I found one part exceptionally interesting. Now, this is something I have to tell you before we continue. Since I'm by myself, I'm going to have to take water breaks because, I only have this one voice. So, one moment. Sometimes it's so good, and sometimes it's so bad. When you want a soda, it tastes like shit. Anyway, in this article, so these players, they're like master players. I mean, I don't know about you, internet, but personally, I think Tokido is the best fighting game player of all time. Like, as of right now, this guy has won, like, in, like, a beastly fashion. He's won tournaments in games that you don't even know his whole resume. You don't even know his whole resume. This guy is extremely skilled. Not to mention the rest of the people on this interview thing, they're expert level players, right? So Mago, during this translation interview thing, he's discussing his match against Sanford Kelly at the last EVO, right? And he's talking about it and he's saying, I won the match pretty easily, but he took a game from me because he was a dirty player, right? So then the next person who's talking to him is inquisitive about that. He's like, what do you mean? What's dirty about him? So he starts talking about Sanford Kelly. For those of you who don't know who Sanford Kelly is, this guy is an American legend. I mean, he's been playing fighting games since the beginning, as old school as, the oldest school players. And, he's been a very good player in multiple games, most notably Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and now he's quite good at Street Fighter 4. So he's talking about Sanford Kelly, and he's saying, okay, when I sat down to play against them, you have to understand that in Japan they play back-to-back, so they don't usually share one screen, which means they're not sitting next to each other. So he's saying when they're playing on one screen, this is him talking in the interview, he's saying usually you kind of give each other your own space so you can share the screen equally. However, when I played against Sanford Kelly, this is Mago speaking, he says when I played against Sanford Kelly, Sanford moved very close to the screen and turned himself at an angle so that I could clearly see his hands, right? And he was very close to the screen. And then he talks about how this guy is intentionally, when he gets knocked down, he walks up. This is how he put it. I knocked him to the ground, and I walked up to implement my Okizeme mix-ups, and he started violently mashing the buttons and moving the stick. And I, in my mind, became extremely scared. This is what he said. Mago. You guys know who Mago and Dago are? This is like one of the best players there is on the planet, you know? He's like, I was very scared, so I decided to block. And Samford got up and threw me. And he did this 5 times in a row. So, let's recap. Mago, 2D God, the best player, one of the best players, was not ready for Samford Kelly's 16, 17, or 20-year-old strategy of fucking dead buttoning and shoulder pumping. Alex Valle used to do that shit at Southern Hills Golfland. I have to say, I learned it from him. I have to say it. You know, I don't love sucking his dick, but I learned that shit from him. This tactic is so old, and the fact that Mago and all the rest of them who are agreeing with him think that this is a dirty quote-unquote tactic, I think is just so pathetic. It just tells me that these guys are not psychologically on the level. They're on the level in terms of the game. They're on the level in terms of the military style training they do, as well as their experience and clutch. But in terms of psychological warfare, they're not on the level, and they need to get on the level. And I think at the end of the article, which the most interesting part about it was at the end of the article, he said, like, this is the way it is when you're sharing a screen, and you have to adjust because this is the way it is. There's no way to prevent it. So I thought it was extremely, extremely interesting that someone of such a high caliber of skill level, I mean, Mago, you know, he's saying, wow, that was dirty, and he fell for that shit 5 times in a row. So, okay, let's say the skill gap were equal, right? Let's say Samford Kelly was as good as Mago, right? Which I don't think he is. I mean, no knocks to Samford, but I don't think he is. And Mago probably doesn't even think he is. But let's just say he was, right? There is no way that the Mago who doesn't do the dirty tricks versus the Mago who does would win. It's an unwinnable fight if they're equal. Let's say it was a totally equal playing field. The amount of leverage, psychological leverage that you get from dead buttoning, I mean, I've said it for years. Lots of people have told me, whatever, Eris's cheap tricks and shit. But you guys, anyone who disagrees with me does not know shit, is a fool. I'm sorry. If you disagree with me on this topic, you're not ready to play fighting games in tournaments next to your opponent. You're not ready. Because people who are smart will do that. And it's just, I mean, why would you not do it? It's not dirty if it's like, I mean, dude, there are rules in place. This is something that, you know, it's similar to the crowd yelling. You know, the crowd is yelling. It's an outside stimuli. This is like someone in the background yelling, yeah, fuck this guy, you know? That kind of fuck this guy thing, you have to be able to block it out. Just the same way these psychological factors of button pressing and shoulder pumping and shit, that kind of stuff needs to be blocked out. It's a part of the war, you know? It's a part of the mind game between these two players. And the funny thing is, Tokido was the one in this interview that I was talking about that was kind of like the voice of reason. He was the one that was like, this is the way it is. You got to learn how to beat it because you're sharing a screen. This is what we do. So you have to be able to, you know, deal with this stuff. This type of thing will work on Koreans. This type of thing will work on anyone from a place where they're not used to playing next to their opponents. When I played a 1st to 10 against Ni in Tekken 6, if I recall correctly, I got 6 games off of him in a 1st to 10. And I'm sure most of those games were because of dead buttons. Now, if you think that that's not like, I don't know what you think, but it doesn't matter because those are hard-earned wins, and that guy was flabbergasted for all 6 of those. Tournament results can get skewed. Players who are weaker than the player next to them in terms of video game skill can beat them because of psychological skill. Psychological mind games, psychological warfare, these kinds of tactics, extremely valuable in a real-world tournament setting. Anyone who argues is an idiot. I thought that article was very, very interesting. I don't know how. Maybe I can link you guys to it in the chat. I'll throw a link. If you guys are interested in reading it, it's a bit lengthy, but it's definitely pretty interesting. check out that link. It's in the chat right there if you guys are interested in checking out the rest of it. But I really wanted to just talk about that for a second. There are still a lot of players out there who don't believe in the dead buttons, but dead buttons are so important. I mean, these players have been doing it for a long time. Basically, we as Americans, we're the inventors of fighting game competition, more or less. Fighting game tournaments side by side, we invented that. Japan or wherever the fuck their history is, they're the ones that invented the competing aspect of it. But as far as the dirty tricks, quote unquote, goes, we invented that shit. Americans invented that shit. Alex Valle and old ass Watson and fucking Jeff Schaefer and Tomo and those really old ass motherfuckers, they are the ones that designed this shit. They're like the Leonardo da Vinci's of fighting games. So you can't argue with history. These are facts. Dead buttoning, faking, shoulder pumping. The fact that yesterday during the tournament, when I was doing king multi-parts, I was looking at my opponent's hands. That was my strat. I mean, if you're going to break the multi-throw, you better cover your fucking hands because I have eyes, you know? I have eyes. I'm not going to go, I could just look over here and the answer's right here, but I'm not going to look there. I'm just going to look this way. Why would you even do that? What's the point? The guy's right there. He's got hands. I'm right here. I got eyes. The answer is right there. Why would I not fucking look at his hands? It's the same concept. Whether you're doing it intentionally or not, dead buttons you're listening. Everyone's listening. You know, unless you're wearing headphones, whether you like it or not, you're going to use your ears. You're a human. And when you're a human and you're in the clutch, you use all your senses to get out of the clutch. And whether you like it or not, you're going to use your ears. You're going to use your eyes if you're smart. But, this is one of those things that it really grinds my gears when people argue with me about it. If you're one of those Sanwa silent button users, which I think is a good idea if you like it, most of the top players who use silent buttons leave real buttons on their stick as the 7th and 8th buttons so that they can have buttons to dead button with. I'm talking about Justin Wong. I'm talking about Ricky Ortiz. These guys do that shit. If you don't believe me, believe them. Dead buttons, it's going to be like, if you're not ready for it, you're a fool. I said it already, but this is it. Side-by-side competitive tournament play, when we start talking about tens of thousands of dollars the way we have been in the last few years, you better use every fucking trick up your sleeve, up your mom's sleeve, up everyone's sleeve. You better have all the tactics ready, you know? So this is just one thing that I found very interesting I wanted to talk about. Let's see, what else were we going to talk about here? Okay, so at this point, I'm going to light a cigarette. This is the part of the podcast where someone else says some shit, you know? And it gives me the opportunity to have some water and, have a cigarette and whatnot. But we'll get by. We'll be okay. So, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is, since Strong Style is coming up this weekend, and everyone is very excited about it, it's kind of in many people's minds like a grand finale as far as big time competitive Tekken Tag 2. A lot of people are seeing it that way, and I have never released any kind of tier list for my own opinion on the tiers in Tekken Tag 2. And, the reason for that is because I really think things like that change a lot. And every time I've gone to maybe release a tier list, I've felt maybe like some of the information was not complete. However, after thinking about it a lot, I came to the conclusion that every tier list is incomplete in terms of information. No one man knows everything about every character. This is just an opinion based on what you've observed and what you've learned over the years. So at this point, I'd like to show you guys my tier list for Tekken Tag 2, and I'd like to discuss some of the details about that. And with Strong Style coming up this weekend, I think that, it's a good time. It's a good time for this type of a thing to be discussed on this show. So, here we go. Before I show you guys this, I want to say two things. First of all, I want you guys to understand that this is based all on my opinion, and my opinion has been gathered from my experiences offline, my experiences in tournament offline, and my experiences as a commentator offline. This is all based on offline. My mentality, my entire infrastructure of my brain does not function with online strategies. I don't know how to play it. I don't want to know how to play it. So if you're an online only player, I don't know what to tell you. But these are my opinions, and that's the key, my opinions. So don't get too fucking butthurt about it. Secondly, though this is going to be a tier list that shows definitive separation between characters, Tekken Tag 2 is an extremely balanced game. So though you're going to see separation between tiers, that does not mean that the gap between two separate tiers, or even the lowest tier and the highest tier, is very big. I might say, historically, I think that Soul Calibur 2 is one of the most balanced 3D fighting games ever, right? And that's because of the system. But I think Tekken Tag 2 is truly the most balanced 3D fighting game there has ever been, because of the fact that it has 60 characters, and I genuinely think that the best and the worst character are not that far apart. And okay, maybe not Dr. B. Forget Dr. B and Angel. They're really shitty. But above those characters, the best character and those second tier characters are very close. So don't get too butthurt either about the separation in tiers. Okay, so this is my tier list in Tekken Tag 2. Let me explain myself. I think these top 5 characters in order are the top 5 characters in the game. And then the tiers go as after that, they go in order here. This list of characters over here is basically any character that becomes obsolete by another character. So, in my opinion, Tiger becomes obsolete by Eddie Christie, etc., etc., etc. So these characters over here are kind of like, who gives a shit about these characters? Now, let's go into a little bit of detail on why these characters are where they are, in my opinion. And again, I don't want to hear any bullshit. This is just my opinion. So, I think that let's ignore the discovery of the Bob reset. I'm sure a lot of you know what the Bob reset is. But if you don't know, there is a way for Bob to do... it's basically a bug using his while standing 2-1. It's a bug that causes you to extend your combos extremely unnaturally. But let's forget about that bug. Even without that bug, I think Bob is still the best character in the game. But with the inclusion of the bug, and the bug, depending on the team, is relatively hard or easy to to replicate, you know? And I honestly think if this game were more popular, more stuff like this would be discovered. Definitely. I gotta tell you, I can't tell you what the setups are, but Just Frame James, he's a son of a bitch. Let me tell you. Just Frame James, that guy has some setups that are gonna make you think, I don't even know how this fucking game works. It makes the game think it doesn't know how it works. There are some setups that James does where there are 4 characters on the screen and none of them even know what the fuck they're doing. They're like, I don't know, sorry, I don't know the rule on this one. They're just running back and forth. My point is, Tekken Tag 2, though it's been out for a couple years, the lack of its popularity has made it like still in its infancy. It feels like people have not really picked the game apart. They've just discovered what top tier is, and they've replicated it and built on top of that. But there are very few people like James or like KYSG that try to pick the game apart. And I think those within the tag system, there is still a lot to be discovered that could change the tier list overall. So, I think Bob is top tier because, and let me tell you guys what I value in a tier list. What I value in a character in Tekken Tag 2. What is good? So, of course, you have punishment. You have damage, very important. You have utility of moves. But in my mind, something that's very important is reliability. Can you count on this to happen every time in the clutch, in tournament? I value that very much. I also value crush moves. I think crush moves are extremely good because the better the player, the better you are at reading and making a very, very good read, then you get into a territory where you can use a crush move that is not necessarily a brilliant idea in terms of the number of things it beats, but it can beat a couple of things. You can reduce it as a good player. You can reduce the opponent's options to maybe 2 or 3 and then use a crush move. Now, if you have a character that has crush moves that beat more things, the more things a crush move beats, the better the move is in value. So, a move, let's say, like Bob's backswing blow, right? Bob's backswing blow beats an infinite amount of things. It will beat mids, it will beat lows, it will back out of several things, throws, all types of stuff. So a move like that automatically creates a character that's breaking rules. And rule breaking for a tournament level player like myself is extremely valuable for 2 reasons. Because, first of all, it's breaking the rules. What the fuck? These are the rules. We play a game. This is the rule set. But you're breaking the rules. You're going under shit. You're doing weird shit. So that's the first reason. It's cheating, right? Second reason is the psychological effect it has on your opponent. So when you do this shit to someone and they do, let's say, I tag in with Bob, and you, whoever you are out there in the chat room, Joey Jojo Jr. in the chat room, you're thinking, Eris is going to tag Bob in, and he's going to do a backswing blow. You do the move that in your mind will beat it, and it loses. Joey Jojo is now mind-fucked. And when Joey Jojo gets mind-fucked, he's going to have a really hard time keeping his composure in the middle of this match. You know what I'm saying? It's going to mentally affect him. And that is very valuable in tournament. In tournament, that is very valuable. So, crush moves, and most specifically, rule-breaking crush moves, are the types of things that I think are extremely valuable in this game. So, now that that's said, if you look at the top characters in my tier list, I think that they definitely all have sprinkles of these rule-breaking aspects in their game. Bob, extremely, extremely good character. I don't think many people would argue with him being the best in the game. Lars, the reason I think he's the best in the game is because he can make any character into, okay, this team's pretty solid. It's always like, who does he play? Oh, he plays fucking JC and Lars. And it's like, oh, all right. He plays fucking Lay and Lars. And it's like he's like the buddy you want. You want him on your side when the fight breaks out. Lars, as your buddy, as your amigo, he makes your team buff. So I think Lars is extremely good. The only thing that I think Lars is lacking, and I've thought this since Tekken 6, is that he is a small army. And he is a large army. And a large army is easy to detect. So basically what that means is everyone knows Lars. Everyone knows about him. Everyone understands the moves that you're going to use that are good with him. So his only flaw as a character really is that he's so good that everyone has their fucking laser sights pointed right on him. Everyone thinks Lars is good. So for that reason, I think, that is his only flaw. However, the fact that this is a tag game makes him even better at that, because it doesn't matter. He's like a powerhouse assist. It doesn't matter if he's a large army and you know all the moves he's going to do. He's a powerhouse. He's going to come in, he's going to put a lightning screw right in the middle of your butthole, and you're going to be up in the air thinking about, wow, what the fuck, lightning screw, I did a mid. That's the way it is. Orbital heal, whiffs, breaking rules, can't punish it. All kinds of stuff like that. He's the king of that, and he has so many tools. I don't even need to keep talking about him. Internet, I don't think there's much of an argument there. Now, let me get a drink of water. Give me a second. You got to bear with me. Okay, so I think at this point, you guys are thinking, why aren't the Mishimas or Nina at the top of this tier list? My answer to that is, I've been competing for quite some time. And the most interesting thing about fighting games to me has been the competition aspect of it, the tournament aspect of it. If there was no tournament scene, I'm telling you guys the honest to God truth. If there was no tournament scene at all in my local area, I would not play fighting games. I would not play fighting games because there is no appeal to me in a fighting game if I can't play it in the clutch, in a tournament, for something, for first place, you know? That thing is really what appeals to me as a player. So that being said, I as a player have explored this idea of the clutch my whole life. Since I can remember, I've been exploring this idea. Things like the dead buttons, things like, you know, how a person's mind reacts to something fucked up that happens to them. The way they give up tells, the way people get frustrated and their shoulders drop, their head falls, and they're just like, fuck. And you can tell this motherfucker's dead. He's dead and he's still playing. You know, it happens. There are times when you're playing against an opponent and you smell the blood. You know it's over. You did some lightning screw and they feel like shit about it and you can smell it. They're dead. You know, that aspect of fighting games is very, very appealing to me. And I've examined this whole thing for a very long time. This whole dirty Sanford tricks thing, I've examined this idea for years. And so my tier list is going to be different than most people's tier lists because I believe in the human's inability to perform exactly the way they want to in the clutch. So this is the reason why Mishimas and Nina are not on the top of my tier list. Because there are very, very few humans on the planet who can not only do this stuff at all, but there are even less people who can do this stuff when Evo's bright lights are pointing at them and the crowd is cheering, you fucking suck, and there's a guy next to you doing dead buttons that you're not used to. Very few humans on the planet can actually take these strategies, these electrics, these 13 frame electric punishes, these fucking wall combos with Nina, the pressure, using sidestep 1, Hayashida step cancel stuff. That stuff is really hard to do, and it's especially hard to do when you're in the middle of a 7-Eleven while it's getting robbed. You know, try plugging your arcade stick in the middle of a 7-Eleven when he pulls the gun out and do 3 electrics into a combo and adjust it perfectly so that you do a tag crash bait and put it. Come on. You know, it's just because it's possible to do doesn't mean it belongs on the top of a tier list. To me. Now, this again, I have to emphasize, this is my opinion, but I think Mishimas have potential to be very good. And as you can see, I have the third best character on my tier list as Devil Jin. The reason I think Devil Jin is the best Mishima, and the reason I think he's better than Heihachi and Kazuya more specifically, is that he has, first of all, the mid pokes that you need in this game to control your opponent. Down forward 1, while standing 1-2. Moves like that are very, very good for a character to have in a game like Tekken because you use them to kind of buy yourself time and position, and you know they're filler for the big moves. The reason Kazuya is so much lower than them is because he doesn't have those moves. On top of that, Kazuya does not have any hop kick or any kind of low crushing launcher that is not a delayed hop kick. So because of that, Kazuya is way lower than the other ones. Devil Jin has a lightning screw. So he has the mid pokes, he has solid lows, he has command throw action, he's got the electric, he's got everything he needs, but he has that lightning screw. As I mentioned, lightning screws are extremely important for tournament play because they fuck with your opponent. Fucking with your opponent breaks them down, and that's when you kill them. You gobble them. If you're going to do a lightning screw and they don't like it, it's over. Psychological. This is psychological here. So with the lightning screw and the rest of his extremely valuable tools, Devil Jin, I think, is the third best character in this game. Moving on. Heihachi. Of course, you guys all know why he's very good. I think I have to explain why he's not up there as the best character in the game. I think he's better than Kazuya because he has those tools that Kazuya doesn't have. I think he's got a lot of extremely solid moves. He has that down back 1+2, I think it is, where he goes way back and does that stupid whatever the fuck it is move. That move is extremely good for mind fucking. He has the electrics. He has forward 2. The only thing he's lacking really is a low crushing launcher. Low crushing launchers are like, they're fucking muy delicioso in this game. Low crushing launchers are super fucking good and important. So he doesn't have one. He has a neutral jump hop kick, which requires a counter hit to get a launch unless you're near the wall. Because of that, I think it drops him. But he still has a what the fuck move, and he's a very, very damaging and solid and resourceful character with a lot of utility to his move list. And I think the most controversial character on this list is Jinpachi. Allow me to get a drink of water, and I'll discuss that with you as well. So, Jinpachi, this character, initially called Skillpachi, many people thought he was the best character in the game when the game first came out. Over time, I think people's opinion of him have waned a little bit. People think he's not that good. He may be a little bit gimmicky. I personally think that because this game is so balanced, every character is more or less the same character. When you push the 2 button, you're going to get a 2 punch with every character. You know, so because of that, if you get a player that is extremely good at this game's system, manipulating the system, what's left? Damage output, right? Damage output and utility is left. Jinpachi has what many people think is the best move in the game, and that is down forward 1+2. He also has something, he's definitely the best by far at capitalizing on rage. Rage is another psychological mind-fucking tool. In this game, in tournament, if a rage Jinpachi comes into the screen, the person who he's fighting against better be on code yellow. He better have his fucking eyes wide open, and he better be watching that Jinpachi because he's coming. Jinpachi with rage is extremely dangerous. And to me, rage is something that is very valuable in tournament. So as a tournament player, in my eyes, Jinpachi's damage and utility, as well as his ability to not really be a big fat character, he's just a slightly fat character. He doesn't have to eat that much more damage than standard sized characters. So I genuinely think that Jinpachi is an extremely cheap character for tournaments. Keep in mind, in long sets, Jinpachi will struggle. If it's a 1st to 10 or a deathmatch, of course Jinpachi will struggle. But in a tournament, he's going to fuck you up. He's going to do 100 points damage every time he touches you. And if you give him rage, he's going to come in and you never know. You're never winning. You're never winning against rage Jinpachi. It doesn't even matter what the life bars say. So, in my opinion, I genuinely think that Jinpachi deserves a spot in the top 5 because of the game's system and the game system's ability to be so rewarding for a player who is extremely good at manipulating it. That is why I think Jinpachi is so good. 14 frame down forward 2 that gives you over 100 points no matter what? That's like... And it's down forward too. You don't have to be a fucking nerd Mishima player that practices all day to do it. You could be a nerd Jinpachi player that doesn't practice all day. You just do it. Boom. All day long. That is the kind of thing that really works in tournament. In the clutch, I think it's extremely, really valuable. So, okay, let's move on a little bit. These characters here, I think, are extremely good and are just about the best characters in the game. They are just below the top 5 characters I just mentioned, and many of them are, like, by technicality, not up there, you know? Like, for example, Kazuya, it's only because I think if he had a down forward 1 that was 13 frames, like a normal down forward 1, or even 14 frames, if it were good, though, if it was a good down forward 1, maybe tracked to one side or something solid, he would be already way better. But the fact that he doesn't have those types of pokes really makes him rely too much on electrics and hell sweeps and things like that. That's too much, relying too much on that stuff. He becomes ancient in terms of counter strategies against Kazuya. He's like Ryu. It's like fireballs and uppercuts. Everyone's seen it for 15 years. There isn't much you can do with him. You have to be extremely good as a player to win with him. So that's not a character like benefit. That's a player benefit. So, you know, he doesn't deserve props for that, in my opinion. So, moving on. Bruce. I think that Bruce's biggest problem as a character, the thing that keeps him from being top 5, is the same problem that Lars has, which is every Bruce player plays exactly the same. Bruce, there isn't much he can do that we haven't seen. You know, if you play Bruce, you're going to do a lot of fucking back two, crouch dash whatever that low is, crouch dash whatever the mid is, and you're going to punish things that are unsafe. That's not bringing anything to the table that's going to make your opponent go, oh, I'm not ready for this. I haven't seen this guy's Bruce yet. You know, Bruce players are all Bruce players. If you know one, you know how to beat them all, because you have to use the good moves that the character has. Now, that being said, he's still extremely dangerous. He still breaks the rules. Crouch dash, the elbow going under mids at times. You know, hop kick, very important tool. Punishment levels are through the roof. Very, very good punishes. So, as you can see, I have him very high on my tier list. But I do think that he suffers from the large army syndrome that Lars has. And he suffers from it more because at least Lars is a great partner for every character. Bruce, he's a little finicky and he has the large army syndrome. So he's not like the end all be all, this is the shit partner, no matter who you play, more or less, you know? So that's my thoughts on Bruce. I don't know if I'm going to go over every character. This is taking forever. Moving on. Eddie and Christy. Let's just pause right there and talk about clones. On a tournament tier list, and I mentioned already that I've examined this aspect of fighting games, the tournament aspect of fighting games, for many years. With this in mind, clone teams are without a doubt the best way to go if your main character has a clone. Even if that team does not produce good damage output or perhaps Netsu, what do you call that shit? Allegiance, Netsu allegiance. That stuff goes out the window because what you're getting from using a clone character is the ability to not have to use your brain while you're fighting. Not using your brain, okay, there's so many things I want to talk about here. But when it comes to the clutch, the fastest part of your brain's reaction time is the innate response. The innate response to touching a hot flame, when you touch a hot flame, you don't put your hand further into the fire as a response to that. It's not like you thought, oh, that's hot, move your hand. It was automatic. There is a signal of damage being sent to your brain. Your brain, it's not even sent to your brain. I think it's fluid in your spinal column. I don't even think your brain even has anything to do with that. So, my point is, if you're able to add all of your strategies and combine them all and put them into this type of clutch, like not thinking about it type of strategy, you're automatically going to be skipping over all of the negative aspects to that team, like low damage, like fucking all that stuff. The low damage that you're getting from the team, let's say you're missing out on, let's say, 10 or 15 points even of damage, right? If you lose 15 points of damage by playing Xiaoyu and Miharu instead of Xiaoyu and whatever, Feng, right? If you're losing out on 15 points of damage there, that's in practice mode. In the actual tournament, in the long run, those punishes that you're going to get with Xiaoyu, because you know Xiaoyu, but like the back of your hand, those shoulders, those fucking perfect punishes that you'll do every time will add up in the long run to way, way, way more than that 10 or 15 points that you lose by picking that team. This is a matter of applying innate reflexes to your tournament game. Innate, that's the key. You can't think about it. The more you think about it, the slower it is. This is a fact. Look it up. The more you think about it, the slower it is. If you don't have to think about it, this is going to become an advantage, and it's going to become a very big advantage. And you can see that in players like Fighting GM. Fighting GM, very, very strong player, extremely skilled in Tekken 6 as well as Tekken Tag 2, but his biggest strength really is that he doesn't have to think. He can play. He can play. You guys know that feeling when you play a new character, brand new, right? You're thinking about these moves. You have them in your mind like, okay, this is a good move here. Oh, look at this. He moved here. Okay, I know what to do with that. Do this. Okay, you know, that kind of thought process, it's slowing you way down. It's slowing you down to fucking molasses. It's slowing you down that much. And Fighting GM, he doesn't think about that shit ever. To him, it doesn't matter what character he's using. When he sees that flame and he touches it, he's going to instantly, without his mind even needing to be a part of the equation, he's going to punish it. Boom. Every time. This is like instinct. It's at that point, it's become instinct. Oh, block this, whatever it is, boom, 13 frame punish. I don't need to think about what my 13 frame punish is. Doesn't matter what character. Another thing that you get when you use a clone team is you can have a homogeneous strategy no matter what's going on. As we all know, in a tournament, you have a strategy that you want to apply, but sometimes things unravel, right? So you're in a match, you're moving around, and you're thinking, okay, I want to get this motherfucker with this move. It's a good move. I'm going to use it to kind of open up some offense. You're thinking about that strategy. I want to get him with this move. I'm going to try and figure this move out, right? When you go for it, he did a lightning screw. I'm up in the air. I'm eating a full combo. Let me tag out. My mentality has changed. Let me tag out. I bring in the other guy. I don't have to think of a new strategy. The strategy is the same. It's like Zen. You know, it's already, boom, it's happening already. Strategy, you know. You don't have to rethink your plan. You don't have to do any of that stuff. So it's really, really valuable, in my opinion, to use clone teams in this game. So that being said, we can graze over some of these characters. Obviously, I think Eddie Christie is a very, very good clone team. Really rule-breaking team. Really, cheating kind of a situation. I'm looking in the chat here. Let's see what Wayne Gamble says. What about a guy like Shano that knows more than one character like the back of his hand? Well, see, the thing is, there's two aspects to that. First of all, I don't think that you can know two characters better than you can know one character. I mean, you only have so much bagel and you only have so much cream cheese. You know, you can't do much with that. You know, how do you even argue that? Learning one character is going to be much, much more advantageous than learning two characters and having to switch strategies every time you tag them in and out. That's just a fact. You know, and the learning process is like, even if you were to believe that you could get as good with two characters as you can with one, it's really like, that's why they call them secondaries. Who's your main? Who's your secondary? Nobody ever mains two characters because it's not possible. You always have one character that's better than the other characters. I mean, it's a fact. You know, I mean, that's my response to that. I genuinely feel that that's the case. You can't learn two characters better than, one character, all your resources put into one character. Of course, you can have a secondary, but he will always be a secondary. Anyway, where was I at? Oh, Eddie Christie. I think very, very good team. I think the counter hit, whatever that fucking elbow is, back two or whatever, extremely rule breaking. Basically, this character has rage all the time, because that move could hit you and kill you, like, all the time. So these characters are very good. They have a lot of flaws in their play style. The lack of a sidestep, the lack of a launching low crush move, all these aspects, I think, are really what hurts them. But overall, Eddie Christie, very solid characters. Water break. I noticed someone else in the chat room mentioned something that most people mention when it comes to clone teams. They mentioned that what about the flip side of the coin? Your opponent, if they're extremely good at fighting against your character, they can also maintain a homogeneous defensive style. You're right about that. But the difference is, on defense, when you're trying to use these fight or flight clutch situations, they're going to have two characters that they have to think about. While the person who has the one character is going to be able to utilize the clutch things like punishes. So basically, my main philosophy about clone characters is about punishment and reaction and move selection. So all those types of things, move selection and punishment and stuff, they're going to have that advantage. While the opponent is not going to have that advantage. You may even out the playing field in like this equation that you've presented where I'm playing double Lee and my opponent is playing Lars and Leo, and this Lars and Leo player is extremely good against double Lee. In that rare scenario, all you've really done is even it out because I got my double Lee and I don't have to think, but you also are good against double Lee, so we're at an even playing field. On the other hand, we're not even in the context of punishment, reflexes, move selection. These are all things that are way, way more valuable in tournament than anything else. They're the most valuable. In tournament, your innate reactions are the most valuable thing that there is. First things first, you have to learn the information. Then you have to program the information into your hands. Once it's in your hands, it becomes something you don't have to think about. You just do it. And that they can't take away from you. And it's such a huge benefit that I think there's no question about the clone team's idea. Other than if you want to just have fun. This isn't about fun, though. This is a fucking tournament tier list. But anyway, moving on. Dragunov, I think everyone can agree. His only flaw, in my opinion, is that he doesn't have a low crushing launcher. Up forward 4, if it gave a bound or something like that, I think he would be very, very cheap. That's his only flaw, in my opinion, as a character. Leo, another one, she's like a mini Lars, basically goes with any team, has a bunch of shit that works extremely well, combo system, great punishes, very solid character overall. Leo is like everyone's amigo. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter who you play. If you learn how to play Leo, you got a good partner. That's a good character. Brian, in my opinion, is a little bit difficult to use. Especially in tournament, the way you have to use him is a little bit clutch, and it's a little bit closer to a Mishima in that context, but it's not as unreasonable, and the final product is a lot cheaper, I think, than a lot of the stuff in the game, like orbital heals, gobbling up standing jabs, or even other things. Excuse me. Or other tools that he has, taunt stuff, movement, low soccer kick, mid soccer kick, being blocked at a certain range. Lots of stuff that Brian has is extremely valuable in my opinion. And I think this character definitely deserves a spot there. He also works quite well with a lot of characters. Moving on. Armor King, I think, is very, very good. We've seen JDCR over the years. Extremely good. He's like a shitty Mishima. He's like a little bit worse than a Mishima. He's got the dark uppercut. He's got a lot of great throws, which I think are very valuable in this game. And he also works quite well with a lot of characters. I think the only thing that he's really lacking as a character is a real reason to use him. I mean, he kind of is a little bit like obsolete, right? I don't know if you guys agree, but it feels like people use him just because they like him, not because there isn't a better character than him. The reason I don't play him is because I feel when I'm playing him in the way that I want to play him, I think to myself, well, I might as well be using a Mishima and having better options, like Devil Jin, for example. I don't really see much of a reason for people to play Armor King over a character like Heihachi and Devil Jin unless they're going to play Armor King and Heihachi or Devil Jin. That's my personal opinion of that character. Though the throws do go a long way, Giant Swing very valuable in this game, as well as the rest of his throws, and throws in general being really valuable. But I definitely think that those two other characters really are similar, very similar characters, but Armor King just, He's super good. Look where he is on my tier list. I just think that unless you're going to play him in those teams or with King, or there's some other extra reason, team-related reason to play Armor King, I don't really think he's like a killer, you know? That's why he's out of my top 5. Moving on, Lee Violet, super fucking good. One of the best clone teams in the game. Low crush, high crush city. Low poke, high poke city. I mean, everyone knows about that stuff. I think the last one that I think people are probably thinking, why the hell is that character there, is Jin. Some of you know how good Jin is, but Jin is like one of those characters that he has asterisks by his pros. You know, that punch parry really is something that, it's not just a punch parry, it's a parry in general. It's something that's so valuable in a game with tag crash like this. And as well as just in general, being able to do a can after parrying something like Dragunov's running 2, things of that sort, very, very good. His wall standing 2 also is something that can produce unnatural, or not unnatural, but very rare types of combos against the wall, and there's a lot to that character overall. I think the character is really, really underrated. I think he has a lot of tools, and I think he's extremely solid, and he belongs where I put him on the tier list, in my opinion. There are a lot of remaining characters in this game, and I don't necessarily feel like going over all of them, so let's talk about, let's see. I think Steve sucks because he only can do counter hits. His offense is very weak, and defensively, the only way you can beat someone with Steve is if they fuck up, if they suck, basically. The only way you could beat someone with Steve is if they suck, I think. Impatience, you know, things like that, predictable swinging at a predictable time, predictable offense, that kind of stuff, Steve will gobble that shit up. But if the other guy is really fucking good, like top level players, that shit's gonna suck. No one can win with Steve at that level, because, I mean, of course you can win with Steve, but you need the other guy on your team. You know, Steve on his own is just, I think, a weak character overall. And again, you can see exactly where how weak I think he is by looking at the tier list. So don't get too butthurt. But, you know, characters like Lei, you know, this character potentially is very good, but when you strip down all of the bullshit gimmicks and you have a guy who's content with just fucking doing the same move over and over again and fucking you up that way, Lei really struggles as well. Just like, don't you guys miss calling Horang Bob? I really miss calling that character Bob. For those of you who are noobs, back in the day, before the character Bob existed, everyone used to call Horang Bob because his name is so stupid. So now that there's a Bob character, we can't call him Bob anymore. I can't stand that. Anyway, old Bob, Horang, I think he's very similar to Lei. If you get a guy who knows how to beat Flamingo and down jabs that shit every fucking time, down jab, down jab, down jab, he's in big trouble. He needs to reduce his game down big time. So that's my opinion on that character. Nina, I already discussed. Potentially very good character, but the details and the difficulty just makes it for not a realistic tournament character. You won't see a Nina player ever dominating a tournament scene. Dominating. Like, every tournament he performs on, you know, point every time. It's not going to happen. That's not the type of character. She may be good in long sets. The potential may be there, but in tournament, she doesn't cut it. I mean, there are so many characters that I could talk about. Let's talk about the shitty characters, or the ones that really disappointed me when the game came out. I think Kunimitsu, I really wanted her to be a good character, and I think she sucks because she's super boring, and she has no way to scare you with anything other than her foot sweep as a low. And the foot sweep, because it comes out of a crouch, it is telegraphed by a crouch. Now, though she can open you up by crouching, similar to the way, you know, Wang can do a bow and arrow from crouch or a hop kick, those types of strategies, though they're good, they're so risky that it really is a coin flip. You're doing a coin flip here, and coin flips are not reliable tournament result producers. So I don't think that that's a viable tournament strategy, and generally speaking, because of that, I just don't think Kunimitsu is very good. I think that Kunimitsu is lacking as a character, and I was disappointed because of that. She doesn't make up for it in any other departments. There isn't anything she can do that other characters can't do better, and that's very unfortunate. Another character that I was disappointed in was Beck. I was talking to Tall John about this character. I think that it's really unfortunate that Beck got nerfed so much, considering that his character's design doesn't even fit in this game. He does not have any moves that do enough damage per number of hits to make his combos worth anything. And as we know, this game is very combo heavy. You gotta produce the damage in this game. So he doesn't have the combos because all his hits do very little damage and a high number of hits, so it doesn't work well with the scaling. But he also doesn't have anything else. I mean, all of his flamingo gimmicks get chomped on with homing moves, and all of the other stuff, all you gotta do is learn it, and you kick the shit out of Bake every time. He is very limited, even more so than Lei and Horang. And those other characters at least have good punishes and have good, lots of other tools that Bake doesn't have. So very, very disappointed in that character's design as it, applies to Tekken Tag 2's system. I hear someone talking about Law and Forest Law in the chat room. I personally think that that character is a lot better than most people think that they are. But the reason for that is because, as I mentioned earlier, I think crush moves are extremely valuable. Law has down 2-3, which really will psychologically affect the opponent. And if you think about it, how fucking hard is it to read a jab? Is it really that hard in the clutch? Make a decision like down 2-3. Half the time it doesn't even go punished by even good players. I mean, Law is buff. Low crush, high crush, lots of great tools. I mean, I think this character is very, very solid. And I think the character is even more solid because a clone exists. So, with all those things in mind, if you're a Law player, you have a Law clone, I think the character is very, very solid. Definitely not weak. Definitely not weak. I heard a lot of people talking about Yoshi. This is the thing. Something I have to tell you guys about this is this tier list will change. Of course. As you know, all tier lists change. Yoshi is a very unexplored character. And I'm seeing things that James is doing with that character that it seems kind of fucked up. It seems like the kind of thing that could move him around on the tier list because of certain things that I'm not going to even give up because it's his personal strategies, and there's a big tournament coming up this weekend. It's none of my business. I'm not going to spill the beans. But there are some beans, and I could spill them. And if I spilled these beans, there would be beans all over the fucking place. There are beans to spill here. So I think this character has potential. I think that it's pretty wild what this character can do. I don't want to go over all the characters and stuff, but I'll release this in non-video form. I did a lot of talking already about this shit, but hopefully you guys found that to be interesting. I'll probably put up an article on the website maybe later today or tomorrow, or maybe after Strong Style, discussing the tier list further. But this is my tier list overall. It's very heavily based on actual real world results in tournaments, what I believe to potentially be possible by humans in the clutch. That's really what's the most important thing to me. So these are my opinions. Hopefully you found them to be interesting. And I have to do a bitch calling now. Internet. My bitch calling is once again going to be ZTS, Run It Black, and whatever that fucking guy's name is. The guy who plays Kangaroo. Not Clam. But however, this is going to be a different bitch calling. Let me explain to you guys why I don't like these people. The reason I don't like these people is because when I first encountered them, I went against my judgment, my instinct as a judge of character, which I am pretty good at judging character. I went against my instinct, and I was nice to these guys. I was like, all right, this guy looks kind of like a nerd. I don't really like him. He's a little annoying, but I would be nice to him. I went against my judgment. And I end up getting screwed in the end because this guy turns out to be a shithead, right? So the reason I brought these guys up again, and you know, I gotta tell you, the one that really stung was Naklam, because this guy was on the phone. You know, I don't like talking on the phone. This motherfucker was on the phone with me for like 2 hours just telling me how much he loves Tekken. Like I give a fuck about how much this guy I don't even know from across the country loves Tekken. But I went against my judgment and I humored him. I said, all right, let me hear about how much you fucking love Tekken for 2 hours, buddy. I'll be a nice guy. And he goes around and talks all this bullshit. Okay. Same thing with fucking the other clown, the Italian guy from wherever the fuck he lives. Same thing. I was super nice to him. I was like, all right, this guy seems kind of like a loser. I don't really want to be around him. He sucks as a human. He's a piece of shit. But go ahead. Come on. Come into my room at Evo. I'll be nice to you, hospitable. Check me out. Watch me play this match if you want. Whatever. Kick your shoes off. And he turns out to be a shithead too, going against my fucking judgment. Same thing goes with the third one, the third clown. The moral of the story here is that at this point, I'm a 30-year-old man, and I'm tired of holding grudges with these losers. So, grudge is clear. Internet, these three clowns are expunged of their crimes. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want to suck their dicks. I don't even want to see their dicks, let alone suck them. But they're expunged. Your guts are not hated by me. Fuck your guts. I don't care about them, but I don't hate them anymore. I'm done with your guts. So the three of you, expunged. I'm tired of these clowns. Internet, thank you so much for joining me for this solo edition of ATP Live. It can be quite difficult to run this show on a weekly basis, and you know, I'm really glad that I did. I really appreciate all you guys always subscribing and always tuning in and, you know, talking shit and stuff. You know, it's good times. Streaming and playing video games has become one to me, and it's very, very nice and humbling and many other words that so many people are so into my stream and so, you know, excited about it and stuff like that. It really warms the cockles of my heart that everyone likes this shit so much. So I really appreciate everyone watching. Good times. Tekken 7, Strong Style. Those three guys can go fuck themselves. I'll see you guys at Strong Style, motherfuckers. Take it